Pavley's SB 1331. Item number 15 will be first on the agenda today to accommodate her witnesses, and hopefully she'll be here shortly. Good afternoon. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Senate and Business Professions and Economic Development Committee hearing for Monday, April 18th. We have 19 bills on our file today. However, at the author's request, we have pulled file item number 16, that's SB 1418. There are two bills proposed for consent today, file item 18, SB 1478, and file item 19, SB 1479. So since we do not have a quorum as yet, we will begin as a subcommittee. And in order to accommodate Senator Pavley's witnesses today, we will take file item 15, SB 1331, out of order and hear that bill first. And so we will start with Senator Pavley. Senator Block.
Mr. Chair, before we begin, was it accurate today? I saw in the paper that it is your birthday.
Yeah, that was accurate today. Yes, thank you. But thanks for reminding me.
Happy
At this
birthday,
age, you don't
Mr.
want to
Chair.
remember those things. But thank you very much.
He's not 70 yet.
Not 70 yet. But next year he will be. That's the problem. Very. Thank you, Senator Block. Senator Pavley, welcome.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much for taking me out of order because I have some very special guests here today, and I appreciate your indulgence and the people who have to wait a little bit longer to have their bills heard. So thank you. I appreciate it. First of all, some of you might know my history with guide dogs. My children raised 4 guide dogs as part of 4-H projects. So we were guide dog puppy raisers from the San Rafael Guide Dogs for the Blind. So it's been, and in fact, we have a career-changed dog that needed a home back at our house. So we've been having a history of about 25 years of guide dogs moving in and out of the Pavley household. So this is a subject near and dear to my heart. This bill was brought to me and it's sponsored by the California Council for the Blind. It's an organization that has represented blind and visually impaired consumers since 1934. It's interesting to note this organization was actually the original sponsor of legislation creating our state guide dog board back in 1947. So the council has a long-time interest in making sure that our state board appropriately meets the needs of guide dog users and their services. So Senate Bill 1331 is designed to make what I consider just 3 relatively modest reforms. I know we're still going to have conversations with people that would like to see things move a different direction. More than willing to do that. But let's go through the 3 modest reforms. First, the bill requires that at least 3 of the 7 members of the board actually use guide dogs. They would know specifically some of the challenges and be able to articulate that in their meetings. Of these 3 members, it requires that 1 representative must serve on the California Council of the Blind, and the second must serve on the National Federation of the Blind. These are the 2 major consumer organizations in the state that serve the blind and visually impaired. The number of guide dog users on the board has fluctuated over the years. Right now, there's 4. Some years there have been 1 or 2. The suggestion by the Council of the Blind is that 3 of the 7 members should be people that use guide dogs and familiar with the challenges of doing that, the day-to-day challenges. Second part of the reform package requires the development of a fact sheet explaining the role of the board and would require its distribution to all graduates of California guide dog schools. If you go online, you could probably find the fact sheet, but it's not that easy. It doesn't come up. Not everyone's sophisticated in using computers and accessing a website and being able to read through all the information needed. So it'd be easier once you get your guide dog that a piece of paper, a fact sheet would be presented to you to know exactly what information is available and what are the duties of the board. People are concerned what they can do or can't do, whether it's ADA compliance or whatever it is. It will articulate this on a fact sheet. Yes, there'd be also one online. Lastly, my bill allows an out-of-state school to provide limited follow-up services in California if the school provided the original training to the California resident dog and is certified by the International Guide Dog Federation, and has to also notify the State Guide Dog Board within 5 days of arrival in California to provide follow-up services. Sometimes people move. Sometimes people elect to have be placed with a guide dog in another state, and they're in California. Who can respond in the event of an emergency or need to have some follow-up services, not specifically in-depth training, but follow-up services with that particular person who has that special relationship with that guide dog. Go back to the people that know them best. I want to acknowledge the committee staff, Bill Gage, for helping craft a reasonable pathway for follow-up services. And in recent years, the board has interpreted its authority as requiring all out-of-state schools to have a California licensure, even if they are only provided very limited follow-up care. This has created a growing backlash because there has never been a single incident of inappropriate follow-up service by out-of-state instructors in California. The recent amendments enable the guide dog user to continue to obtain assistance from the instructor that knows the student and knows the behavior and the personality of the dog to ensure true consumer protection. While I understand the State Guide Dog Board took an opposed position on this legislation a week ago, I'm sincere in my desire to continue my discussions with the board. It's very important to do. These are what I assumed were 3 modest reforms. Obviously, more discussion needs to be held. I'm certainly willing to do that. But let's go on to the witnesses. Margie Donovan, representing the California Council of the Blind, with her dog here today. Shannon Dillon, attorney and member representing the National Federation of the Blind, right next to me here. And Jeff Tom, he's president of the California Council of the Blind and legal counsel. He's here to answer any questions you may have. You might have known Jeff if he looks familiar. He was formerly an attorney with our state legislative council for many years.
Wonderful. Thank you, Senator Pavley. And before we begin with your witnesses, maybe we could establish a quorum. So would the assistant please call the roll?
Hill.
Here.
Hill here, Bates. Here. Bates here, Berryhill. Block. Here. Block here, Galgiani. Hernandez. Jackson. Here. Jackson here, Mendoza. Wachowski. Here. Wachowski here.
Very good. We do have a quorum. So there are 2 bills proposed for consent. Could we have a motion for that? Motion by Senator Block on the consent calendar for the day. Please call the roll.
Hill.
Aye.
Hill, aye. Bates. Aye. Bates, aye. Berryhill. Block. Block, aye. Galgiani. Hernandez. Jackson. Aye. Jackson, aye. Mendoza. Wachowski. Aye. Wachowski, aye.
Very good. Those bills have 5 votes. We'll hold the roll open for the absent members. And now please proceed with the witnesses. So witnesses in support, please.
Yes, Margie, if you would begin. Let me turn on the microphone. Here we go. Thank you.
Oh, it's on. Very good. It's on now. Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name's Margie Donovan, and I want to say that I'm a born Californian. There's not a lot of us. And the reason I say that is when I was 18 and finishing high school, I asked my travel trainer at the time about a guide dog, and they told me to go to the Seeing Eye, which is the original school in the United States, and it's in Morristown, New Jersey. I've since had on my 6th dog, so it's been quite a long haul with dogs. And it's only been in the last few years, since I've been working dogs over 35 years, that requires out-of-state instructors to be licensed to come in and provide follow-up care if we should have a challenge with our dog. We have been in opposition to that, and it was changed in 2012, unbeknownst to us, to require the licensure of out-of-state instructors. Since that period of time, there have been people that have not gotten the follow-up services that they need from their school. One of our members here today will be briefly telling her story. She had to retire her dog just the other day because she couldn't get follow-up from the Seeing Eye in Morristown, New Jersey. Aftercare is a critical need for any graduate from any school. There's always going to be a time that we might need some input from the instructor. We might need an instructor to come and observe us crossing a street if we're having problems. It's a difference of keeping a team together and not keeping a team together. And these dogs are worth $60,000. And just because it's having a problem crossing a street and I can't get someone out here to support me, my dog would have to retire. So I really encourage each of you to seriously consider this bill and to cast a yes vote in favor of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Donovan. Appreciate that. Our next witness in support.
Shannon?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay, do I need to?
good.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect, thank
good.
you. Good morning, my name is Shannon Dillon. I'm here to represent National Federation of the Blind of California and California Association of Guide Dog Users, which is a chapter of that organization. And we support this bill in its entirety. We would like to see that there be at least 3 handlers on the board, but one from each consumer organization. Currently, the handlers on the board, the state agency representative happens to be a handler, but that has not always been the case. So there are 4 handlers currently on the board. That's just a matter of the people who happen. It's not always that way. It's just a matter of the people who happen to be on the board. We also need representation from each of the organizations. Someone who can represent the current policies of the respective consumer organizations. Right now, there is no one representing National Federation of the Blind of California's interests on the board, and certainly not one that's representing our policies. We also support the need for the provision that would allow follow-up services for all the same reasons that Margie has put forth. People they need follow-up care, and they need the availability for support after receiving services. I too have an out-of-state guide dog, and my next guide dog will be from Seeing Eye in New Jersey. And I need to be able to have the option for follow-up services. So I would ask that you support this, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dillon. Appreciate the comments and for your support of the bill. Other witnesses in support? Would you like to come forward? There's a microphone here that you can stand at.
They were all in my office.
Major day.
It was really exciting. Only a few barks.
Oh, no, they're well-trained, either in-state or out of state.
Right here.
Hi, my name is Leslie Tom, and I am with California Council of the Blind. I have my 6th dog from Guide Dogs for the Blind, and I support this bill.
Very good. Thank you very much for being here and for the testimony. Yes.
Hello, my name is Tanya Howlett. I am in support of the bill. I just had to retire my 5th dog because I could not get help from the Seeing Eye.
Very good. Thank you very much for coming. Yes, sir.
Right there.
Good afternoon.
Hello, I'm Frank Welty from the California Council of the Blind. I also happen to be a former member of the Guide Dog Board, and I'm here with my first guide dog, Jeep, who was trained at Guide Dogs for the Blind, and I am also in support of the bill.
Very good. Thank you very much for coming this morning, or this afternoon. I'm thinking it's morning.
Hello, my name is Penny Valdivinos. I'm also a member of the California Council of the Blind, and I'm on the Independent Living Center of Kern County. I am in support of this board for the 1331B. I'm in total support. My dog is here with me, Earl from the CNI.
Very good. Thank you very much. And
Earl.
Thank you. Thank you to Earl. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello. My name is Mike Kelly. I'm a member of the NFB, and I support this bill because I have a dog from out of state.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Are there others here in support? Oh, yes, please come forward.
Vinci? Two more.
That's fine.
3 more steps. Right there.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Right there.
Welcome.
Okay, I'm good. Good afternoon. I'm Diane Deutsch. I am a 3-time graduate of Guide Dogs for the Blind. I support this bill, and you all have a letter from me that I delivered 2 weeks ago to your offices.
Thank you very much.
It's a 2-year-old, very lively yellow lab. I think it's Jack.
Good afternoon, sir.
Dr. Thomas Luparello. I'm Diane Deutsch's husband. I'm here for the California Council of the Blind. I have a retired guide who has career changed for my condition, and this is an important bill, Senate Bill 1331. I'm in support of it. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much for being here and for testifying today.
Sure. Yep, right here. 2 more steps right there.
Good afternoon, sir. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Gil Johnson. I have Harley here, my friend, is the second guide dog I've gotten from the Seeing Eye. And I had written a letter to all of you expressing my support for this bill. I would just have to say that as good as well-trained as Harley was having trouble with crossing the streets, and it was endangering me, and that's where I needed the services of the trainer that knew me and knew the dog. So I am very much in support of this bill, and my letter to the committee expresses more of my thinking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Yes, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Upham. I come here today to speak in favor of this bill. I've been connected with blind and visually impaired people for over 15 years, nearly 20 now, and I believe that I'm familiar with the issues involved here, and I do support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else here in support? Seeing no one, anyone here in opposition to the bill?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman,
Good afternoon.
and members of the committee. My name is Brian Skewis. I'm the Executive Officer of the California State Board of Guide Dogs for the Blind. I'd like to express my appreciation of you and Senator Pavley for taking such great attention into detail regarding the guide dog community. It's also great to see so many wonderfully trained dogs here as well today. I'm speaking to you on behalf of the board to express their concerns regarding the specific proposals in Senate Bill 1331. On April 8th, the board voted to oppose this bill. And this bill would increase the required number of guide dog users serving on the 7-member board from 2 to 3, and further require that 1 member be appointed from each of the California Council of the Blind and the National Federation of the Blind. Furthermore, the governor shall take recommendations from those organizations regarding the selection of members. Currently, a majority of members on the board are guide dog users, and historically there has been representation from both of those organizations on the board. The board feels that there are ample opportunities for community organizations to voice their opinion through the provisions set forth in the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. Additionally, individuals and organizations already have sufficient avenues to recommend candidates to fill positions on state boards. The board does not see a valid reason to further restrict the candidate pool from which the governor may draw. Most importantly, this bill would allow unlicensed instructors to enter into the state and provide instruction without obtaining licensure, provided that the school by which they are employed is certified by the International Guide Dog Federation, or IGDF. In 2012, the board clarified regulations to specifically state that follow-up services are considered instruction. This clarification was the result of the board identifying that out-of-state schools were sending unlicensed instructors into the state to provide follow-up services. Follow-up services have always fallen under the broad statutory requirement for licensure. However, the board felt it was necessary to specifically address this topic through regulations. Currently, no other state issues licenses regarding the training of guide dog teams, making equivalent sister state licensing reciprocity impossible. The IGDF has no standardized examination process or background investigation requirement for individual instructors. The IGDF does not have any enforcement authority or jurisdiction over schools or the individual instructors in each school's employment. IGDF certification is not a requirement to conduct business in any state. And the board currently licenses instructors from 8 of the 11 schools that have teams residing in California. The board, of the 3 schools that do not have licensed instructors on staff, only 2 of them are IGDF certified, making application of IGDF certification moot in the topic of unlicensed activity in California. The board exists to ensure the quality of the guide dog industry by setting and enforcing standards for public safety. The board feels strongly that examination and licensure of instructors is the only way to ensure that consumers are protected from substandard instruction. The board cannot ensure its public protection mandate if it cannot exercise the regulatory authority over the entire industry. No one should be exempt from the licensure requirement simply because of a business decision not to obtain licensure. Guide dog instruction in California is a regulated profession and requires a license. Finally, this bill would require that the board develop a fact sheet outlining various functions and processes of the board and require that guide dog schools licensed by the board distribute that fact sheet to individuals receiving training. While the board is already developing this content and is not opposed to requiring that schools distribute it, the board feels that this is a regulatory matter and should be addressed as such. Yeah, thank you for your time, and if there are any specific questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Very good, thank you. And you may want, yes, Senator Wachowski.
I wanted to know, when did the state of California start providing licenses for guide dog trainers?
In 1947 was when the board was established.
So they've been, and since 1947 in California, you had to have a license in order to have one of these 8 schools or train folks.
There's 3 left in California. There's
Okay. Or whatever, but
schools
that's the
left.
law now, is if you want to train in California, you have to have a license.
Correct.
But not in any of the other states.
Correct.
Okay. And your testimony was that you had in 2012, there was a clarification of what the law was, so that, explain that to me again, is that the law doesn't allow any unlicensed dog trainer to come in California and do services.
Yes, thank you for your question, Senator. The broad statutory language says that guide dog instruction is regulated in the state, that you have to have a license to provide instruction in the state. The board has always considered follow-up instruction to be part of instruction. When an instructor is out walking a route with an individual who has a guide dog, it's considered instruction. So the interpretation took place because there were instances that the board became aware of that this was taking place. The clarification and regulations took place after that to make it explicitly clear that this was included in the definition of instruction.
If it's all right, Jeff Tom,
Very
who's
good.
been
Thank you, Senator Pavley.
waiting patiently here, could respond to that. Senator Wachowski, he's the president of the California Council of the Blind and Legal Counsel.
So, in response to your question, Mr. Wachowski, the board had never, prior to 2012, applied this provision to follow-up care by out-of-state schools. Now, whether or not they realized that unlicensed individuals had ever done this before, I can't honestly say. What I can say, though, is that there had never been and has never been an instance where a person from out of state, whether licensed or unlicensed, has come into the state and provided inferior care, at least so far as the board is aware. That's what we were told by the executive officer himself.
If I could clarify really shortly, if you don't mind, it has never been the board's position that follow-up services are allowed in the state without a license.
Yes, of course, Senator Jackson.
Yes, are there enough state-certified instructors to provide the concerns and aftercare for these guide dogs as it exists today?
I'm going to have Mr. Tom answer that, but people in California that are visually impaired who want guide dogs, there's 3 schools with licensed instructors in state. A lot of them opt to have services provided from dogs out of state New Jersey, in Margie's case there, and they're trained with that particular dog. Then they either move back to California or they take their dog and move back to California. And then in the event of unforeseen incident that they need some follow-up care, the dog that's been trained specifically and matched with them, it's a very careful process of matching the right dog with the right person. Should that person most familiar with it be able to provide, not that, come into the state and provide that kind of service for that particular problem, because it's an emotional bond between the visually impaired person and their dog that's been trained, and that trainer knows that. Having gone through it 4 times, that matching is really important. And so there's never, Mr. Thomas suggested, never been one bad outcome from allowing this practice to continue. And a lot of people debated just the semantics, frankly, of whether follow-up care is the same as initial training. And it's a word definition,
No,
and that's the disagreement.
I'm just wondering what the motivation is for the opposition more than what you're calling for. I'm wondering why they would be opposed to that. Are there, and what I hear you saying is that a lot of these dogs that require some after training or whatever you call it,
rare circumstances.
Are they generally, the trainer then comes from the state where the dog was trained, so they know the dog already?
Senator,
yes.
Just to respond to your question very quickly, schools do not provide training for dog teams from other schools. That is not a practice that is done. So Guide Dogs of the Blind, for example, would not provide any training for any dog that came from an out-of-state school. In addition, even for those schools that might have, 1 or 2 individuals who are licensed, if they were in California, if they were teaching a class or otherwise engaged and an emergency situation came up, such as a dog being attacked or an accident that the dog was in, you would want to get somebody in here immediately to deal with the dog team situation.
Okay, so I guess the question is, if there haven't been any problems up to now, so we're not talking about sort of people who have no relationship with the dog, people who don't know how to train dogs. Why is the state so concerned that these people who have a 100% track record are going to continue providing that service?
May I address that, please?
Yeah, through the chair.
Yes, of course.
Absolutely. Thank you. The board's position on out-of-state instruction is, or the board's mandate as a whole is to ensure consumer protection. And from an enforcement standpoint, there is a difference between proactive enforcement and reactive enforcement. If we don't know that an individual is coming in, which in the amendments to the bill we would know potentially up to 5 days after the services have already been provided. But if the board is not aware that this is taken care of, that this is happening, they can't address the consumer protection component of it.
But if the consumers are being protected, in fact, not only are they being protected, it seems extraordinary to me that the trainer's going to come in from New Jersey to take care of, or vice versa, to take care of a problem associated with a dog that they've trained. I mean, boy, I wish more consumer protection like that existed in a variety of our different programs. I mean, I have some familiarity with this issue, and I totally appreciate the relationship that a trainer and the, we don't call them owners anymore. What
Handlers.
The handlers have with these dogs. I don't see where, and I understand too, if you have a responsibility as an entity, you don't want to lose that ability to enforce. But I don't hear any problem here. In fact, to the contrary, it sounds to me like that these entities that train these dogs are demonstrating an enormous amount of responsibility by saying if there's a problem, we have a duty and a desire to take care of that problem, to protect the handler of that very important part of a person's life. So I don't get it, and on that basis, unless you can persuade me otherwise, I'll move the bill.
Very good. Thank you, Senator Jackson. Are there others here in opposition? Hearing no one. Thank you, sir, and I appreciate your consideration by staying there for the presentation. So any further discussion here? Hearing none, would you like to close?
Yes. I just wanted to mention that the bill authorizes the board to refuse any personnel who have committed certain violations of the law, and it gives the board full disciplinary authority to act if a consumer is adversely impacted by an out-of-state school providing such services. We haven't had a problem. We have 3 guide dog schools left in the state: San Rafael, Sylmar in the San Fernando Valley, and out in the Palm Desert area near Palm Springs. It's logistically hard to go back and forth. You can't take your dog from out of state to those schools to have it retrained, and it's a different dog, different trainer. It's too much. And if there was a problem, I would not be suggesting this reform.
I think it's
Ask for your aye vote.
most appropriate legislation, and I think that it really does provide the consumer protection that we're looking for at the end. We have a motion from Senator Jackson. Please call the roll. This is due pass to Senate Appropriations.
Hill.
Aye.
Hill, aye. Bates. Aye. Bates, aye. Berryhill. Block. Aye. Block, aye. Galgiani. Aye. Galgiani, aye. Hernandez. Aye. Hernandez, aye. Jackson. Aye. Jackson, aye. Mendoza.
Aye.
Mendoza, aye. Wachowski.
We have seven votes. The bill will be out, but we will hold the roll for absent members. Thank you very much for coming today and for your testimony. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Pavley. Senator Nguyen, please.